The bruises on her arm should have been invisible. Kayla had worn long sleeves specifically to hide them, had practiced her smile in the bathroom mirror until it looked almost natural. But when she reached up to retrieve little Marcus from his high chair, her sleeve slipped, and Kang Tae-jun saw everything. His coffee cup stilled halfway to his lips. Dark eyes tracked the purple fingerprints circling her wrist, the yellowing edges of older marks climbing toward her elbow. 5 months she'd worked in his home, 5 months of watching her move through his penthouse with quiet efficiency, caring for his nephew like the boy was her own blood. He'd never seen her flinch, never seen her afraid, until now. "Miss Williams," his voice came out low, controlled, the same tone his men knew preceded violence. "What happened to your arm?" Kayla's hand flew to cover the exposed skin. Too late, she'd seen his expression shift, watched the distant politeness harden into something focused and dangerous. "It's nothing, Mr. Kang." She lifted Marcus onto her hip, using the 2-year-old as a shield. "I bumped into a cabinet." "A cabinet." He set down his coffee with deliberate precision. "With fingers." The silence stretched between them like a held breath. Tae-jun rose from the breakfast table, and Kayla instinctively stepped back. That small retreat, that reflexive fear, ignited something in his chest that had nothing to do with the empire he'd built through blood and calculation. For the first time in 12 years of controlling Chicago's underworld, Kang Tae-jun felt completely out of control. "Who?" One word, a command. "Mr. Kang, I really need to get Marcus to his playroom." "Who put their hands on you?" Marcus squirmed in her arms, sensing the tension. Kayla bounced him gently, her eyes fixed on a point somewhere past Tae-jun's shoulder. She wouldn't look at him. Couldn't. "It's not your concern. You work in my home." He moved closer, and she moved back again, bumping against the marble kitchen island. Trapped. "You care for my nephew. Everything that happens under this roof is my concern." "This didn't happen under your roof." "Then where?" His hand lifted toward her arm, then stopped, hovering, waiting for permission she didn't know how to give. "Where, Kayla?" She flinched at her name. In 5 months, he'd never used it. She'd been Miss Williams, professional and distant, exactly as she preferred. Her first name, in his accented voice, felt intimate, dangerous. "My apartment," she whispered finally. "My ex. He came by to discuss our daughter and things got heated." Tae-jun's jaw tightened. "Your daughter's father did this." "Destiny's father, yes." She shifted Marcus to her other hip. "But it's handled. I'm handling it." "Are you?" His eyes dropped to her wrist again, to the fingerprints that proved someone had grabbed her hard enough to bruise. "Because from where I'm standing, Miss Williams, it doesn't look handled. With all due respect, Mr. Kang, my personal life isn't—" "Your personal life became my business the moment you walked into my home injured." Something flickered across his features, concern mixed with barely restrained fury. "You have a daughter, 4 years old, correct?" Her blood went cold. "How do you know that?" "I know everything about everyone who enters my space." He said it simply, like it was obvious. "Destiny Marie Williams, pre-K at Bright Futures Academy, loves princess movies and butterflies, stays with your grandmother while you work." Kayla's arms tightened around Marcus. "You investigated me?" "Background checks are standard for anyone working this close to my family." His voice softened fractionally. "I also know you're 3 months behind on rent, that you work a second job waitressing on weekends, that you haven't bought new clothes for yourself in over a year because every spare dollar goes to Destiny." Tears pricked her eyes. She blinked them back viciously. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I need you to understand." Tae-jun stepped closer, and this time she didn't retreat. "I see you, Kayla. I've been seeing you for months, and I'm not going to stand by while someone hurts you." The words landed like physical blows. She'd spent years perfecting invisibility, moving through spaces without disturbing the air, making herself small and silent and easy to overlook. Her survival had depended on not being seen, and somehow, in this penthouse high above Chicago, surrounded by marble and glass and wealth she could barely comprehend, she'd been visible all along. Before she could respond, Marcus reached for Taejun with chubby arms, babbling something that might have been his uncle's name. The sight of the powerful crime boss softening for a toddler cracked something in Kayla's chest. "I need to take him to his playroom," she said quietly. "We can discuss this later." "We will discuss it." His voice held no room for argument. "This afternoon, after his nap." It wasn't a request. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from today. And if you've ever had someone see you when you thought you were invisible, hit that subscribe button. This story is just getting started. Kayla Williams had learned early that survival meant keeping your head down. At 27, she'd mastered invisibility, a skill that served her well in Chicago, where dreams died and rent crushed you. The Gold Coast penthouse wasn't her world. But when the nanny agency had called with an emergency placement, wealthy family, twice the standard rate, starts immediately. Kayla hadn't hesitated. Destiny needed new shoes. The rent was 3 months overdue. Pride was a luxury she couldn't afford. She'd expected coldness from Kang Tae-jun. The other staff whispered about him constantly. The Korean kingpin, they called him, when they thought no one was listening. Half of Koreatown runs through his organization. The restaurants are legitimate. Everything else exists in shadows. Kayla didn't care about his business. She cared about the $1,800 a week that kept Destiny fed and her grandmother's lights on. What she hadn't expected was his attention. It started small, a nod when she entered a room, questions about Marcus's development that showed he actually listened to her answers. The way his gaze would linger sometimes, studying her with an intensity that made her skin warm. She told herself she was imagining it. Men like Kang Tae-jun didn't notice women like Kayla Williams. They noticed models and heiresses and women who belonged in penthouses, not women who scrubbed other people's floors to survive. But then, he'd started leaving things. A cashmere blanket appeared in her break room after he'd heard her mention the building was cold. New books for Marcus that matched exactly what she'd described wanting to teach him. Fresh flowers in the kitchen every Thursday, the day she worked longest. She'd never thanked him, never acknowledged the gifts at all. Acknowledging them would mean admitting he saw her, and being seen was terrifying. Now, standing in the playroom while Marcus stacked blocks, Kayla pressed her palms against her eyes and tried to breathe. Jerome. It always came back to Jerome. They'd been together since high school. The good girl and the bad boy. A story as old as time. She'd loved him fiercely, blindly, even when the signs were there. The way he controlled where she went, who she talked to, what she wore. When she got pregnant with Destiny, she'd thought things would change. They got worse. The first time he hit her, she'd made excuses. Stress, the baby crying, her own failure to be a good enough partner. The second time, she'd started planning. The third time, she'd left. That was 4 years ago. Jerome had been in and out of prison since then. Never consistent, never reliable, but always somehow there. Appearing when she least expected it, reminding her that she'd never truly be free. Last week, he'd shown up at her apartment door. "I want to see my daughter." "You haven't seen her in 8 months, Jerome." "I'm her father." He'd pushed inside, his presence filling her tiny living room like a storm. "You can't keep her from me." "I'm not keeping her from you. You keep disappearing." That's when he'd grabbed her wrist, twisted, shoved her against the wall with the flat of his arm against her throat. "Don't you talk to me like that!" His eyes were bloodshot, his breath sour, high on something. "You forget who you're talking to." She hadn't forgotten. That was the problem. Now, 3 days later, the bruises had bloomed into purple-yellow flowers across her brown skin. Concealer couldn't hide them. Long sleeves couldn't hide them. And Kang Tae-jun had seen. Her phone buzzed. "Jerome! Need to talk. Tonight. Don't make me come find you." Kayla's hands shook as she deleted the message. Tae-jun sat in his home office, staring at the dossier his head of security had compiled in the 2 hours since he'd given the order. Jerome Davis, 28. 3 arrests for assault, 1 for possession with intent. Currently on probation. Last known address, A rundown apartment complex on the south side. Employment status, unemployed. The photo showed a man with dead eyes and an arrogant jaw. The kind of man who hurt people because he could, because it made him feel powerful. Tae-jun knew the type. He'd killed men like this. "Sir!" His second-in-command, Park Min-ho, appeared in the doorway. "You wanted an update on the Williams woman. Tell me." "Jerome Davis has a pattern. He disappears for months, resurfaces when he needs money. His mother's medical bills are piling up. Word on the street is he's looking for quick cash." Min-ho's expression was carefully neutral. "He's been asking around about Miss Williams, where she works, what she makes. He sees her as a resource. Appears so. Her new salary has been noticed." Tae-jun's fingers tightened around his pen until it cracked. The sound echoed in the quiet office. "What would you like us to do?" Min-ho asked. The options unfolded in Tae-jun's mind. He could have Jerome disappear. One phone call, one order, and the man would never threaten Kayla again. It was what he would have done 5 years ago without hesitation. But he thought of Kayla's face, the fear in her eyes. Not fear of Jerome, but fear of him, of what he represented, of the violence she sensed beneath his calm exterior. If he killed her ex, would she ever look at him without terror? "Watch him," Tae-jun said finally. "I want to know everywhere he goes, everyone he talks to. If he comes within 100 yards of her apartment or this building, I want to know immediately. And if he makes a move, then we have a different conversation." Min-ho nodded and withdrew. Tae-jun turned back to the window, watching Chicago sprawl beneath him. His city, in many ways. The buildings and businesses and shadowy corners that all answered to him. None of it mattered when he thought about the bruises on Kayla's arm. He'd built his empire on control, on calculating every angle, anticipating every move. But this woman, this quiet, fierce woman who sang lullabies to his nephew and arranged flowers when she thought no one was watching, she'd slipped past every defense. He hadn't meant to fall for her. He wasn't sure he could stop. The afternoon conversation happened exactly as Tae-jun demanded. He found Kayla in the nursery, folding Marcus's laundry with mechanical precision. "Sit," he said from the doorway. She didn't turn around. "I'm working." "The laundry can wait." "Mr. Kang? Tae-jun?" He crossed the room, positioning himself so she couldn't avoid his gaze. "If we're going to discuss your ex-boyfriend threatening you, we're past formalities." Something flickered across her face. Surprise, maybe, or recognition of a line. Being crossed. "There's nothing to discuss." Jerome Davis. He watched her flinch at the name. 3 assault arrests. Currently on probation. Has a history of showing up when he needs money and using violence to get it. Her hands stilled on the tiny shirt she was folding. "You looked him up." "I had him looked up." "There's a difference." "Is there?" "The difference is, I have resources you don't." He moved closer, and she finally met his eyes. "Tell me what happened." The full truth this time. For a long moment he thought she'd refuse. Then something in her expression cracked, and the words came pouring out. She told him about high school, about the pregnancy, about the first hit and the second and the third, about leaving with nothing but a suitcase and a 6-month-old baby. About building a life from scratch only to have Jerome appear at her door last week, demanding money, demanding access to destiny, demanding her. By the end, her voice had gone flat, mechanical, like she'd detached from her own story just to survive telling it. Tae-jun listened without interrupting. When she finished, he asked only one question. "Does he know where you work?" "No." Then less certain. "I don't think so." "Does he know about me, about this family?" "Why would he?" "Because men like Jerome don't give up resources easily." Tae-jun's voice was harder than he intended. "And you're a resource to him now, 1,800 a week, paid in cash, working for a family with obvious wealth. If he's done even basic research, he's not that smart." "He doesn't have to be smart. He just has to be motivated." Kayla's face paled. "You think he'll come here?" "I think he'll do whatever gets him what he wants." Tae-jun reached out, his fingers brushing her sleeve where the bruises hid. And I think what he wants is control over you. She pulled back. I can handle Jerome. You've been handling him for 4 years. How's that working out? The words landed harder than he intended. He saw her eyes flash, not with fear, but with anger. I've kept my daughter safe for 4 years. I've worked 3 jobs. I've built a life from nothing. Don't stand there in your marble penthouse and tell me I'm not handling things. That's not what I know what you meant. She grabbed the laundry basket, using it as a barrier between them. You meant I'm weak. I'm a victim. I need some powerful man to swoop in and save me. I meant you shouldn't have to do this alone. The words stopped her cold. Tae-jun stepped closer, ignoring the laundry basket, ignoring every instinct that screamed at him to maintain distance. I'm not offering to save you, Kayla. I'm offering to stand beside you, to use my resources, my influence, my protection, to make sure Jerome never hurts you again. And what do you want in return? The question was sharp, justified. She'd been used by men her entire life. Of course she expected a price. Nothing you don't want to give. Her laugh was bitter. Men always want something. I want you safe. He said it simply, honestly. I want to stop seeing bruises on your skin. I want Destiny to grow up with a mother who isn't afraid. That's all I want. She studied him for a long moment, looking for the trap, the hidden agenda. You don't even know me. I know you sing to Marcus when you think no one's listening. I know you rearrange his toys so I won't trip on them in the morning. I know you remember how I take my coffee even though it's not your job to make it. His voice dropped lower. I know you cry sometimes in the supply closet when you think you're alone. And I know you wipe your eyes and come back out and act like nothing happened. Her throat moved. You've been watching me. I've been seeing you. He corrected quietly. There's a difference. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. A message from Minho. Jerome Davis just entered the building lobby, asking about the nanny. Tae-jun's expression must have changed because Kayla's eyes went wide. What? What is it? He's here. Tae-jun was already moving toward the door. Stay with Marcus. Lock this door behind me. Don't open it for anyone but me. Tae-jun, promise me. Something in his voice cut through her fear. She nodded. I promise. He was gone before she could say anything else. If you believe in protecting what matters, hit that like button and subscribe, because what happens next changed everything. Jerome Davis was exactly what Tae-jun expected. Loud, aggressive, and utterly unprepared for who he was about to meet. I just want to see Kayla. Jerome's voice echoed through the marble lobby. I know she works here. Just let me up. The concierge, actually one of Tae-jun's security personnel, maintained a pleasant smile. I'm sorry, sir. We have no one by that name in the building. That's bullshit. I followed her here last week. Big black girl, natural hair, takes care of some kid. Tell her Jerome's here. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Or what? Tae-jun emerged from the private elevator. The lobby went silent. He walked slowly, deliberately, his footsteps echoing off marble. Every line of his body communicated controlled violence, the kind of stillness that preceded storms. Mr. Davis, his voice was soft, almost pleasant. You seem to be looking for someone. Jerome turned, sizing him up. Tae-jun could see the calculation happening, the attempt to figure out who this Asian man in the expensive suit might be, whether he was a threat. Who the hell are you? The owner of this building. Tae-jun stopped 5 feet away, close enough to see Jerome's bloodshot eyes. And the employer of the woman you've been harassing. Something flickered across Jerome's face. Uncertainty. I wasn't harassing anyone. I just want to talk to my kid's mother. You put bruises on her arm 3 days ago. Tae-jun's voice never rose. You threatened her. You forced your way into her home. And now you've tracked her to her workplace. He tilted his head slightly. That's not a father seeking access to his child. That's a man who refuses to accept that a woman no longer belongs to him. Look, man, I don't know what she told you. She didn't have to tell me anything. The bruises spoke for themselves. Jerome's posture shifted, aggressive. This ain't got nothing to do with you. This is between me and Kayla. You made it about me when you walked into my building. Your building, Jerome laughed. What are you, some rich Asian dude playing savior? Think you gonna steal my girl just because you got money? Taejun smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Let me explain something to you, Mr. Davis. I am Kang Taejun. If you don't know that name, I suggest you ask around. If you do know it, then you understand exactly how serious I am when I tell you this. He stepped closer. Jerome, to his credit, didn't back down. Stupid. If you come near Kayla again, if you call her, text her, show up at her apartment, or come within 100 yards of this building, I will consider it a personal insult, and people who insult me tend to disappear. You threatening me? I'm making a promise. Taejun's voice dropped to barely a whisper. One you should take very seriously. For a long moment, the two men stared at each other. Then Jerome's nerve broke. Whatever, man. He backed toward the door. She ain't worth this. You're right. Taejun watched him retreat. She's worth far more than you ever understood. Jerome left. The lobby doors closed behind him. Minho materialized from a side corridor. Should we follow him? Yes, and pull up everything we have on his mother's medical situation, his debts, every pressure point in his life. Are we going to— Not yet. Taejun turned towards the elevator. But I want options, just in case. Kayla had heard everything. The nursery had an intercom system connected to the lobby. She'd never used it before, but today, with Taejun's warning ringing in her ears, she'd activated it without thinking. Now she sat on the floor beside Marcus's crib, her heart hammering, replaying Taejun's words. She's worth far more than you ever understood. No one had ever spoken about her like that. Not her grandmother, who loved her, but showed it through criticism. Not Jerome, who'd spent years tearing down every shred of her self-worth. Not the parade of employers who'd seen her as interchangeable, disposable, invisible. But Taejun had faced down her abuser and declared her worth. A knock on the nursery door made her jump. "It's me!" Taejun's voice, low and controlled. "Open the door!" She did. He stood in the hallway, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked uncertain. "He's gone," Taejun said. "My people are following him. He won't come back." "I heard." Her voice came out smaller than she intended. "The intercom. I heard what you said to him." Something shifted in his expression. "All of it?" "All of it." Silence stretched between them. Then Taejun exhaled, the tension draining from his shoulders. "I meant every word." "I know." She stepped aside. "Come in. Marcus is sleeping." He entered the nursery, and the space immediately felt smaller, charged. They stood on opposite sides of Marcus's crib, the sleeping toddler between them like a bridge. "Why?" Kayla asked quietly. "Why do you care so much? I'm just your nephew's nanny. You're not just anything." His voice was fierce. "You're the first real thing in this apartment. You're the reason Marcus laughs. You're—" He stopped, jaw tight. "You're the first person I've wanted to protect in a very long time." "I don't need protection. I know you don't." He moved around the crib, closer to her. "You've been protecting yourself your whole life, fighting alone, surviving alone, but you don't have to be alone anymore. You don't know what you're offering. I know exactly what I'm offering." He reached out, his fingers hovering near her face, not touching. "I'm offering my resources, my protection, my—" He paused. "My heart, if you'll have it." Kayla's breath caught. "Taejun!" "I know this is fast. I know our worlds are different. I know I'm the last person you should trust." His hand dropped. "But I've watched you for 5 months. I've seen your strength, your tenderness, your fire. And somewhere along the way, you became the only thing I could see." Her eyes were burning. "I'm nobody. I clean houses, I change diapers. I'm 3 months behind on rent, and I can't afford to get my car fixed, and You're everything." He said it like a fact, undeniable. "You're everything, Kayla. and I'm asking you to let me prove it." She should say no, should maintain the distance, protect herself the way she'd always protected herself. He was dangerous. He was her employer. He was everything she'd spent her life avoiding. Instead, she rose on her toes and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was soft, tentative, a question more than a demand. Taejun made a sound low in his throat and pulled her closer, one hand sliding to the small of her back, the other still gentle, still waiting for permission. He kissed her like she was precious, like she mattered, like he'd been waiting 5 months to do exactly this and could hardly believe it was happening. When they finally broke apart, his forehead rested against hers. "This is insane," she whispered. "Probably. You're my boss. We can fix that. Your family, your organization, has nothing to do with this." His thumb traced her cheekbone. "This is just you and me. Everything else is details." Marcus stirred in his crib, making a soft sound. They both froze, then exhaled when he settled back into sleep. "I should go," Taejun murmured. "Let you process. Let you decide if this is what you want." "And if I already know?" Something fierce and hopeful lit in his eyes. "Then tell me. I'm terrified." Her voice shook. "Of you. Of this. Of what happens when everything falls apart. It won't fall apart. You can't promise that. I can promise I'll fight for us." His hands cupped her face with devastating gentleness. "I can promise I'll spend every day proving you made the right choice. I can promise that whatever comes, you won't face it alone." Her phone buzzed, her grandmother's number. "I have to take this." But when she answered, her grandmother's voice was trembling. "Baby, there's a man here, at the house. He says he's Destiny's father. He says if you don't come home right now, he's taking her." Every drop of blood drained from Kayla's face. If this story has you on the edge of your seat, drop a comment and let me know. And make sure you're subscribed, because what Taejun does next shocked the whole city. The drive to her grandmother's house took 18 minutes. It should have taken 30. Taejun drove like a man possessed, weaving through traffic with terrifying precision. Kayla sat in the passenger seat, her phone pressed to her ear, trying to keep her grandmother calm. "Don't let him take her. Don't let him—" "He's on the porch, baby, just pacing, but he's yelling about lawyers and custody and—" "We're 5 minutes away. Don't open the door." 2 black SUVs followed them, Minho in one, 3 more of Taejun's men in the other, an army mobilizing for one little girl. They arrived to chaos. Jerome was on the porch, shouting through the screen door. Mrs. Williams stood inside, Destiny clutched in her arms, both of them crying. Neighbors had gathered on their lawns, watching the scene unfold. Kayla was out of the car before it fully stopped. "Jerome!" Her voice cracked across the evening air. "Get away from that door!" He spun toward her. "Finally! Took you long enough. Now tell your grandmother to give me my daughter." "Your daughter?" Kayla's voice was rising. "You haven't seen her in 10 months. You don't pay child support. You don't remember her birthday. You don't get to call her your daughter." "I'm on her birth certificate. That's all that matters." Jerome moved toward her, and Taejun stepped between them. The temperature on the porch seemed to drop 10 degrees. "We discussed this earlier, Mr. Davis." Taejun's voice was conversational, almost pleasant. "About what happens when you don't take my warning seriously. Man, get out of my way. This is family business." "No." Taejun didn't raise his voice. Didn't have to. "This is my business now." Jerome's laugh was ugly. "What? You think you're her man now? Think you can just buy her? She ain't nothing but a—" Taejun moved so fast Kayla barely saw it. One moment he was standing still. The next, Jerome was on his knees, arm twisted behind his back, face pressed against the porch boards. "Finish that sentence!" Taejun's voice was ice. "Please, give me a reason." "Get off me! This is assault! I'll call the cops!" "Call them!" Taejun twisted harder. Jerome screamed. "Tell them you came to your ex-girlfriend's family home, threatened her grandmother, terrified her 4-year-old, and violated the restraining order that will be filed first thing tomorrow morning." What restraining order? The one my lawyers are drafting as we speak. Taejun leaned close to Jerome's ear. You're done here? Do you understand me? Done. If I find out you've contacted Kayla or her grandmother, or even thought about little Destiny, I will end you. Not metaphorically, not eventually, immediately. You can't. I can. Taejun's voice dropped to something barely human. I have resources you can't imagine, connections in places you don't know exist. I could make you disappear tonight and no one would ever find you. The only reason I'm not is because Kayla doesn't want blood on her hands. But if you test me again, I won't give her a choice. He released Jerome, who scrambled back, cradling his twisted arm. This isn't over, Jerome spat, backing toward his car. Yes. Taejun stood, brushing off his sleeves. It is. They watched him drive away. Minho's SUV followed, maintaining distance. Then Kayla was past Taejun, through the screen door, her daughter in her arms. Mommy! Destiny buried her face in Kayla's neck. The bad man was yelling. I know, baby, I know, but he's gone now. He's not coming back. Promise? Kayla looked at Taejun, standing in her grandmother's doorway, powerful and protective, and looking at her like she was his entire world. I promise. The aftermath was a blur. Police came. Statements were given. Taejun's lawyers arrived with preliminary restraining order paperwork. Kayla's grandmother made coffee for everyone, muttering about high-drama boyfriends. And couldn't you find a nice accountant? By midnight, it was over. Jerome was officially barred from coming within 500 feet of Kayla, her grandmother, or Destiny. Violations would result in immediate arrest. Kayla stood on her grandmother's porch, watching the last police car pull away. Destiny was asleep inside, exhausted from crying. Taejun appeared beside her. You should get some rest, he said quietly. It's been a long day. I can't sleep, too much adrenaline. Then at least sit. They sank onto the porch swing together. The chains creaked softly, a sound from Kayla's childhood. You threatened to kill him, she said finally. I threatened to make him disappear. Slightly different. Would you have? Taejun was quiet for a long moment. If he'd touched Destiny, if he'd hurt you again in front of me. His jaw tightened. Yes. I should be horrified. You're not? She turned to look at him. This dangerous man who'd dismantled her world in a single day, who'd faced down her abuser and mobilized lawyers and promised to burn everything down for a woman he'd known for 5 months. No, she admitted. I'm not. His hand found hers in the darkness, their fingers intertwined. What happens now? She asked. Now you come home. Home? The penthouse? You and Destiny. There's room, more than enough room, and it's safer than your apartment or your grandmother's house. I can't just move in with you. We've barely... You can. His thumb stroked over her knuckles. You should. Not because I'm asking, but because Destiny deserves to feel safe, because you deserve to sleep without one eye open. People will talk. People always talk. Let them. Your family will accept whoever I tell them to accept. He shifted to face her fully. I'm not asking you to marry me, Kayla. I'm asking you to give us a chance, to let me protect you and Destiny while we figure out what this thing between us is. And if it doesn't work, if we realize we're too different, that this was just adrenaline and proximity, then you'll still have a safe place to live, a good job, resources to build whatever life you want. His eyes held hers. But I don't think that's going to happen. You sound very sure. I am. He lifted her hand to his lips, pressed a kiss to her knuckles. I've spent 12 years being certain about strategies and acquisitions and territory. This is the first time I've been certain about a person. Kayla's heart hammered against her ribs. Okay, she whispered. Okay? We'll try. But you have to understand, Destiny comes first. Always. If anything threatens her, I'm gone. I would expect nothing less. He smiled, and it transformed his face, made him look younger, almost boyish. Can I meet her properly when she wakes up? You want to meet my 4-year-old. I want to meet everyone who matters to you. She leaned into him, letting herself feel safe for the first time in years. His arm wrapped around her shoulders, solid and warm. She's going to ask you a million questions. Kayla warned. Good. I like questions. She's obsessed with butterflies. I'll learn everything about butterflies. And princesses. She'll want to know if you're a prince. Taejun laughed softly. What should I tell her? Tell her the truth. Kayla tilted her face up to his. Tell her you're a king. He kissed her under the stars, on her grandmother's porch with the remnants of chaos still lingering in the air. And when they finally pulled apart, Kayla knew with absolute certainty that everything was about to change. For the first time, she wasn't afraid of it. 3 weeks later, the penthouse had been transformed. Destiny's fingerprints covered everything, literally. Tiny handprints on the floor-to-ceiling windows, crayon drawings taped to the refrigerator, a princess tent in the corner of what had been a formal sitting room. Kayla kept waiting for Taejun to complain. He never did. She's alive, he said once, watching Destiny spin in circles, until she collapsed dizzy and laughing on his Persian rug. This place needs alive. Marcus adored her. The 2-year-old followed Destiny everywhere, mimicking her every move. And Destiny, who'd never had siblings, adopted him immediately as her baby brother. They're cousins, Kayla corrected once when Destiny introduced Marcus that way. They're whatever they want to be, Taejun countered. Family is more than blood. The custody paperwork came through on a Wednesday. Full custody to Kayla. Jerome's rights terminated based on history of abuse, failure to pay child support, and the restraining order violation. When the lawyer called with the news, Kayla sat in the middle of the penthouse floor and cried. Taejun found her there, surrounded by toys and tears. Bad news? He sank down beside her, instantly alert. Good news! She laughed through her sobs. The best news. He can't take her. He can never take her. Relief broke across Taejun's face. He pulled her into his arms, rocking her gently while she cried out years of fear. You're safe now, he murmured against her hair. Both of you, forever. Because of you. Because of you. He pulled back to look at her. You survived him. You built a life despite him. You were strong enough to leave and smart enough to recognize danger and brave enough to let someone help. All I did was provide resources. You did more than that. Did I? She reached up, tracing the line of his jaw. You saw me. When I'd spent years being invisible, you looked right at me and saw everything I was trying to hide. You're impossible to miss. He caught her hand, pressed a kiss to her palm. I never stood a chance. Mommy, Destiny's voice echoed from the hallway. Mommy, Marcus is eating crayons again. They laughed, foreheads pressed together, the moment breaking, but not shattering. Welcome to my life, Kayla said. Chaos and crayon-eating toddlers and never a moment's peace. Perfect. Taejun kissed her quickly. Absolutely perfect. The city learned about them gradually. First, it was whispers. The Korean kingpin seen with a woman and child. The nanny who'd somehow become something more. Then photographs caught by paparazzi at charity events, at restaurants, at Marcus's second birthday party. The tabloids went wild. Crime Boss's new queen. They screamed. From nanny to wife, inside the scandal. Kayla ignored them, or tried to. They're calling me a gold digger, she said one night, scrolling through comments with morbid fascination. A scheming opportunist who targeted a rich man. Taejun plucked the phone from her hands. They don't know anything about us. They think they do. Let them think. He set the phone aside, pulling her against him on the couch. In 5 years, they'll have moved on to someone else. In 10, they won't remember we existed. But we'll still be here, still together, still proving them wrong. You're very confident about the future. I'm confident about you. His hand slid into her hair, tilting her face up. About us. Everything else is noise. The wedding happened 6 months later. Small, private, held in the penthouse garden that Taejun had transformed into a flower-covered paradise. Kayla wore white. Destiny wore the princess dress she'd picked out herself. Marcus served as a very unreliable ring-bearer. Taejun's sister performed the ceremony. His mother cried. His men, hard-faced soldiers who'd done terrible things without flinching, wiped suspiciously at their eyes, when Kayla said, "I do." "Mrs. Kang," Taejun murmured after the kiss, his forehead pressed to hers. "I like the sound of that. Don't get used to it." But she was smiling. "I'm keeping Williams professionally. Keep whatever you want, as long as you keep me." "Always." Destiny tugged on Taejun's suit jacket. "Does this mean you're my daddy now? For real?" He crouched to her level, and Kayla watched his expression soften into something that made her chest ache. "I've been your daddy since the moment I met you, Destiny. This just makes it official. Will you come to my school play? My real daddy never came to anything." "I will come to every play." Taejun's voice was fierce. "Every recital, every game, every boring award ceremony. I will be there for everything. I promise." Destiny threw her arms around his neck. "I love you, Daddy Taejun." "I love you too, Princess." Kayla watched them. This powerful, dangerous man who'd become the father her daughter deserved, and felt something inside her finally heal. Years passed, the penthouse filled with noise and life and love. Destiny grew, kindergarten, then first grade, then second. She learned Korean from her grandmother and picked up Taejun's habit of speaking formally when she was being serious. She remained obsessed with butterflies and developed a new obsession with martial arts, which Taejun enthusiastically encouraged. Marcus became her shadow, then her conspirator, then her best friend. The two of them caused more chaos than Kayla would have thought possible, but it was joyful chaos, the kind that made a house a home. Two more children followed. A son, Daniel, with Taejun's sharp features and Kayla's stubborn streak. A daughter, Grace, who came out quiet and watchful, already calculating the world the way her father did. Taejun stepped back from the organization gradually. Not all at once, that would have been impossible, but slowly, deliberately, delegating to trusted lieutenants, legitimizing what could be legitimized, distancing himself from the violence that had built his empire. "For them," he said once, watching all four children pile onto Kayla in a laughing heap. "For you! I want to be able to look them in the eye." "You already can. I want them to never have to know what I was. They'll know someday, and they'll understand." She caught his hand. "You're not that man anymore." "Sometimes I am." He looked at their joined hands. "When someone threatens my family. When I... Think about what Jerome tried to do. The darkness doesn't disappear just because I want it to." "No, but you choose not to act on it. That's what matters." He pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. "I don't deserve you." "Probably not." She smiled against his shoulder. "But you're stuck with me anyway." On their 10th anniversary, Kayla found Taejun on the balcony, watching the city lights spread out below. "You're brooding," she said, sliding her arms around him from behind. "I thought we agreed no brooding on anniversaries." "I'm not brooding, I'm thinking." "Thinking about what?" "About that day in the kitchen." He turned in her arms. "When I saw the bruises, I almost didn't say anything, almost convinced myself it wasn't my business." "But you did say something." "Because I couldn't not." His hands cupped her face, thumbs tracing her cheekbones. "Because you mattered more than my comfortable distance, more than my rules about not getting involved. You broke a lot of rules for me. I'd break them all again." He kissed her softly. "Every single one." Kayla leaned into him, feeling his heartbeat against hers. This man who had seen her bruises and decided she was worth fighting for. This man who had given her children a father and her life a purpose beyond survival. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For noticing." She pulled back to look at him. "For not letting me be invisible." "You were never invisible." He smiled, and it still, after all these years, made her heart race. "You were the only thing I could see." The city glittered below them. His city, their city, the place where they'd built something impossible from violence and fear and stubborn, ridiculous love. "I love you," Kayla said, "in case I don't say it enough. You say it every day, with the coffee you leave on my desk, with the way you arrange the children's photos, with everything you are." "That's very romantic." I learned from the best." She laughed, and he pulled her closer, and they stood together on the balcony watching their city, their life, their future spread out before them. It was everything Kayla had never dared to dream, and it was absolutely, perfectly, irrevocably hers.